Hello, welcome to CCHP's 300 series on telehealth policy learning series. Today we're going to talk about court cases. Now, in previous sessions, I have talked about the influence of legislation or regulations and board guidelines on how telehealth policies develop, but also court cases can have an impact on what happens with telehealth policy as well. Few disclaimers before we get started. Know that any information provided in today's talk is not to be regarded as legal advice. It is strictly for informational purposes. CCHP always recommends that you consult with legal counsel if you're interested in formal legal opinion. And know that if I happen to mention a company or show some type of product, CCHP has no relevant financial interest, arrangement, or affiliation with such an organization. So, as most of you probably know, and as CCHP has gone over in previous series, the way that telehealth policy can be created, most people are probably familiar with like legislation creating it. So Congress or your state legislature passes a bill and it impacts telehealth policy. Regulation is usually the implementation of that policy, maybe by some administrating agency that has the duty to administer the policy or implement the policy, such as if Medicare legislation was passed that impacted telehealth, CMS has to like implement it and they'll issue regulations, same thing with Medicaid programs. And then there are also administrative actions. So decisions that maybe agencies such as like CMS or a Medicaid program may decide to like craft telehealth policy or change it and like dictate and like what's being reimbursed and what will be covered. And also, regulatory boards like licensing boards. So those policies can also be administrative action too. But today we're going to focus in on court cases because court cases can also have an impact on like what can be used in telehealth or how telehealth policy is crafted and what can happen with telehealth. Now, most people, when they hear court cases in telehealth, they automatically think of like malpractice cases. And yes, they can influence telehealth policy on some level. For example, if there are a lot of telehealth malpractice cases, which there are not so far when this is being recorded on February of 2022, they can make premiums go up because perhaps, carriers think that there's greater risk there, so they increase the premiums just to like offset things. So yes, there could be like an influence that malpractice cases have on telehealth in some way. But there are other cases that really impact how laws change, how regulations may be implemented or what might be implemented, and they lead to development of policies that really impact telehealth on a wide scale. And here's an example one of this. It's the North Carolina State Board of Dental Examiners versus the Federal Trade Commission. So this was 2015 Supreme Court case. And what happened, the background on this was the North Carolina Dental Board basically issued a rule or a regulation that said that only professional licensed individuals, dentists, can do teeth whitening. My understanding of the case that there were cosmetologists who were offering it in North Carolina. They were obviously not dentists. And the dental board said, no, you can't do that. That'll be illegal. The FTC said, well, wait a minute, this is you infringing on trade. So they filed an action. The dental board tried to fight against it. And it was a case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the FTC. Basically, what they were saying was this was within the FTC's power to monitor because the dental board members were market participants who were benefiting from suddenly this limitation put on the marketplace. So basically they were saying like the people who had like a benefit to gain from these limitations were in control of this. And that was something that was not going to happen or it could not happen, was a violation unless certain safeguards were in place. And those safeguards that they cited were like oversight over the board or its members in some ways, such as like another state administrating agency, which North Carolina did not have. Now, you look at this case and go like, wow, this is way far from like telehealth. We're talking about teeth whitening. So how can this like relate to like telehealth policy? Well, in 2015, using this case, Teledoc, which is a telehealth company, went against the Texas Medical Board on an antitrust case because the Texas Medical Board was issuing rules that required physicians to conduct in-person physical exams before diagnosis and treatment allowed. Now you look at that, that kind of eliminates a company like Teledoc, who is strictly a telehealth platform. They're not conducting in-person visits. And they said that the Texas Medical Board, by issuing this a requirement, they were doing what North Carolina was doing, in that they were creating a favorable environment for themselves because board members were active participants in the marketplace. Now, the Texas board members are saying like, no, we have legislative oversight, or we have oversight from like another agency. So this board was like, so this case was going all the way through the judicial channels. And the Texas Medical Board lost in U.S. District Court, and it was put on appeal. However, the parties kind of drew back a little bit, and they said, let's see if we can work out a solution so we don't like, take it on to the next level of in court. And basically they came to a resolution where the state legislature like passed legislation to remove the face-to-face requirement, and the medical board revised the rule in 2017. So essentially Teledoc won their case. So this had significant, this sort of like case on teeth whitening from North Carolina had like a significant influence over policy in Texas related to telehealth. So this is just one way in which, court cases do have significant impact on development of telehealth policy. So you do also need to keep your eye on court cases, not simply because of maybe malpractice concerns, but the fact that it could help shape policy down the line in some way. So hope this has been helpful to you. And this is like another bit of information you can add to your knowledge around telehealth policy and how it is created and developed. If you have more questions or you want more information around telehealth policy, please visit the CCHP website at cchpca.org. Thank you.